Hello, and welcome back to From the Therapy Room Psychology of Mind and Body. I'm Jyoti. I'm a clinical and counseling psychologist and a psychotherapist. I'm really glad you're here. You're welcome to follow this space and stay connected. There's a lot we'll gently explore together. This is a space where we gently explore the inner landscapes of human mind, where psychology meets lived experiences and where the stories we carry inside finally find language. In this podcast, we explore the psychology behind everyday emotional experiences, the things we often struggle to understand within ourselves but feel very deeply in our day to day life. And today we are going to talk about something almost everyone experiences, but very few people truly understand. In the past few days, I have been noticing a pattern in conversations, in reflections, and even the quiet things people don't always say out loud. A question that keeps coming up in different ways is this: why do I feel stuck even when I want to change? Not dramatically, not always visible, but in small, everyday ways. Wanting to start something but not beginning. Wanting to move forward but staying where you are. And wanting things to feel different but repeating the same pattern over and over again and again. And somewhere in between all of this, there's a quiet confusion, a quiet frustration, and sometimes a quiet self doubt. So, before we go any further, let me ask you this: have you ever felt like you want to change something in your life, but somehow you just don't? You think about it, you even feel motivated at times, but when it comes to really actually doing it, you feel stuck. I know it happens with all of us. And almost as if something inside you just pauses. I think this question is coming up more today than ever because we are constantly exposed to growth, social media, self improvement, healing language. We are more aware than ever, but not always more supported internally. And that gap between awareness and readiness often feels like stuckness. If this is where you are, I want you to just pause for a moment and take this in slowly. There is nothing wrong with you. You're not lazy, you're not lacking discipline, you're not broken. You're just, you are not failing at life. What you are experiencing is a deeply human psychological experience. You're not failing at life. And more important, it makes sense. Even if right now it feels confusing, frustrating, or even disappointing to some extent. Because when we don't understand our own patterns, we often turn against ourselves. And this space is about turning toward yourself instead. This stuckness doesn't always look big. Sometimes it's look like opening your laptop and then closing it again. Another time wanting to send a message but not typing it. Or some other time thinking about starting something and postponing it again. And maybe some other time again knowing what to do I mean, you know that what needs to be done, but just not doing it. What we often call being stuck. It is really about not wanting enough. It is about wanting two different things at the same time. So somehow there is the inner conflict, if we, that's what I'm trying to talk about here. Because there is a part of you that wants expansion, that wants movement, that wants possibility. And there is another part of you that wants safety, certainty, emotional protection. And both are equally real. So when you feel stuck, you're not failing, you're holding an internal conflict. And conflict, when it happens inside, it feels like a stillness outside. And sometimes when what keeps us stuck is not just fear of change, but also something we are getting from staying the same, not consciously but psychologically. It could be protection from failure, it could be avoiding difficult emotion, it could even be staying in a role that feels familiar. So the a part of you is not just resisting change, it is also benefiting from not changing in some way. And in therapy, we often see this very clearly, that wanting to change and not wanting to change can exist at the same time. And that doesn't mean something is wrong. It means you are in a space of ambivalence, which is often the beginning of real change. But there is another question which is coming in my mind, that where does this conflict come from? This conflict is not random, it is shaped over time, often much earlier than we realize. So, in the early phase of life, we learn what is safe, what is risky, what gets us love, and what leads to disconnection. And sometimes, in a very subtle way, for example, what I meant to say that sometimes we learn in a very subtle way. And let's take the example of like, if expressing yourself lead to criticism, you may learn to hold back. And if trying something new led to embarrassment, you may learn to avoid risk. If being a certain way helped you feel accepted, you may hold on to that identity. And sometimes what we're really protecting is not the situation, but who we believe we are inside the situation. If I'm no longer that one who struggles, who am I? If I become confident, will I still belong? If I change, will my relationship change? These are not conscious things and these are not conscious decisions. They become internal templates. And later in life, when you try to change, you're not just making a new choice, you are challenging an old emotional agreement. Because this conflict doesn't come from nowhere. A lot of you present hesitation, which is shaped by earlier emotional experiences, not always big ones, but subtle and repeated ones. Moments where you were not fully seen, you felt judged, you felt that trying something new didn't go well. You learned that being a certain way kept you safe. And these experiences uh, don't just stay as memories, they become emotional imprints. And sometimes we don't just remember these experiences, we repeat them. And we move forwards what feels familiar. even when it doesn't feel good, because somewhere inside there is an unfinished emotional experience trying to resolve itself. Let's try to understand from another perspective also, like from the inner child perspective, if or maybe another way to put it, what I'm trying to explain here. There is also a younger version of you that is still exists within your emotional world, and 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 that part is not concerned with growth, it is concerned with safety. So when you try to step into something new, the younger part may quickly ask, will we be okay? Will this hurt? Will we be left alone? And if the answer is uncertain, it may gently pull you back, not to stop you, but to protect you from something it once couldn't handle. There are also parts of you that remain unseen. So we can say there are some unseen parts, not because they are bad, but because at some point they didn't feel acceptable, like your anger, your vulnerability, your needs, your fear. I mean, these parts don't disappear, they go into the background, and from there, they shape your reactions. So sometimes when you feel stuck, it's not that just hesitation, it is a part of you saying, if we move forward, something inside me will be exposed. And the other times, what you are protecting is not just a pattern, it is an identity. If I am that or this person anymore, or if I'm not this person anymore, who am I? The version of you that feels stuck, maybe the version that helped you adapt, and the part that wants to change is the part moving towards something more authentic, and that transition can feel uncertain. Sometimes the version of us that feels stuck is the version we had to become to adapt, to belong, and to be accepted. And the part that wants to change is the part that wants to come closer to who you really are. There is a powerful psychological truth here. The mind often chooses familiar discomfort over unfamiliar freedom, because familiarity creates predictability, and predictability creates a sense of control. Even if that control is limiting, still. So, staying in the same place is not always about comfort, it is often about, I know how this feels, or I know how to survive this, or whereas change brings, I don't know what this will feel like, or I don't know who I will be there. And that uncertainty can feel like a loss of ground. And sometimes what looks like procrastination or avoidance is actually a way the mind protects itself by distracting, by delaying, by overthinking. It helps you not to feel something that may feel too overwhelming in that moment. Let me share something I often see. Someone wants to leave a job they have outgrown. They feel exhausted, uninspired. They know they are capable of more, but every time they think of leaving, something holds them back. And when we explore deeper, It's not just about the job. It's about what if I fail? What if I can't handle uncertainty? What if I disappoint people? So they stay, not because they want to, but because it feels safer than the unknown. And at a deeper level, your system is wired for connection, not just success, not just growth, but belonging. So if change feels like it might lead to somehow disapproval, a kind of distance, or being misunderstood, or losing emotional closeness, your system may resist it. Because for the psyche, losing connection can feel more threatening than staying stuck. So sometimes you're not just holding on to a pattern, you're holding on to a sense of belonging attached to that pattern. And that's what makes a difference here. If I talk about what happens inside the therapy room when I see kind of these kind of things, this show up in a very human ways. I know something like I know this isn't good for me, but I still can't change it. I have heard it so many times in my life from other people, and when we sit with it longer, something softer emerges. Something like I'm scared that if I become different, people won't relate to me on the same way. Or if I fail again, I don't know if I can handle that feeling. Or even if I let go of this struggle, what remains of me? And in that moment, you realize something very important. The stuckness is not the problem, it is protecting something much deeper. And sometimes I gently ask, what feels risky about changing this? And after a pause, the answer is not logical, it's emotional. I'm, I'm scared I won't be able to handle it. And that's where the real work begins. In therapy, we don't try to remove resistance immediately, we try to understand it. Because resistance is not opposition, it is communication. Your system is always trying to maintain balance between growth and safety, between movement and stability, and between expansion and regulation. Your habits, your patterns, and your resistance. They are not problem actually. They are regulation strategies. Your body especially plays a very important role here. When something feels unfamiliar, your system may respond with heaviness, fatigue, avoidance, and overthinking. Not because you are incapable, but because your system is trying to slow things down, to process, to adjust, to feel safe again. Just for a moment, if you're listening to this, please pause here and notice your body. When you think about something you have been wanting to change, what do you feel? Is there tightness somewhere? Is there heaviness somewhere? A resistance? Don't change it. Just notice. Simple notice. So instead of asking why I'm like this, try sitting with a different question. Very gently. What might I lose if I actually change? And stay with that. Because the answer may surprises you like anything. You might notice a loss of familiarity. You might notice a shift in identity. You might notice a change in how others perceive you, or you might notice letting go of a protective pattern. And when you see this clearly, your resistance begins to make sense. And when something makes sense, it softens. How do we begin to move from here? Not by forcing, but by relating differently to yourself. You can begin with very small shifts. Notice notice your resistance without judging it. Name the fear underneath the hesitation and acknowledge the part that is trying to protect you, or take one small step, not a drastic leap, and allow discomfort without immediately escaping it. And another one, let change happen at a pace your system can hold. And most importantly, instead of controlling yourself, start understanding yourself, because understanding creates safety and safety allows movement. You don't have to change everything at once. You don't even have to feel ready. You just have to stay in gentle contact with yourself, even in your stuckness. If something feels too big, reduce it. Not start a new life, but take one small action and you will see how the difference is taking place, and you will feel even it within yourself. There is also a natural tension within us between staying safe and becoming more. One part of us wants stability, and another part quietly moves toward growth, meaning, and expansion. Feeling stuck is often where these two meets. There is something deeply human in this experience. We are not just begin who want to grow, we are also begins who remember. And growth often asks us to step away from what once kept us safe. So the process is not just about becoming more, it is also about gently releasing what we no longer need while honoring the role it once played. If you're sitting with me, we wouldn't end this conversation by saying, go fix yourself. We would end it by gently acknowledging it, like you're not stuck because you are incapable. Rather, you're is standing between two parts of yourself, one that wants to grow and one that's trying to keep safe. And maybe instead of pushing yourself harshly, you can begin by understanding both. Thank you for spending this time with me today. This has been From the Therapy Room, Psychology of Mind and Body. If this resonated with you, you can share what you felt or noticed in the comments. I would love to hear from you and I would love to hear your reflections. And if you find these conversations meaningful, you can follow or subscribe to this podcast and feel free to share it with someone who might need to hear it. So these spaces of reflection can continue to be a part of your journey. Until next time, take care of your mind, your body, and the quiet spaces within you. See you next time. Take care of your mind, your body, and the quiet spaces within you. See you next time. I'll be just sitting next besides to you. Take care.